This is Joe Skovron, and you're listening to Chasin Birdies.
All right, y'all, we are chasing turkeys. Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Welcome back here to another episode of Chasin Birdies. My man, JP.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there. Hopefully you are smelling the turkey's ass right now. Well, you know what I mean. But
yeah,
we appreciate all of you for tuning in, and we are thankful for all of our listeners and non-listeners. We're thankful for people who don't listen to us.
Thanksgiving is a holiday unlike any other. You just don't feel any guilt for stuffing yourself, eating stuffing, eating dessert, watching football, laying on the couch, being merry, acting like everything's great. It is a great day.
I may even make breakfast, bud, and cheat on my don't eat till noon.
Yeah. Let the kids eat anything they want. It's a good day. However, here in the Northeast, for us, Thanksgiving generally comes at a time in the golf season when we're not golfing. So now we start to unwind a little bit, but slowly but surely get the itch again. But we're full swing into right now winter hibernation mode, bud. What do you think? I mean,
but I just told you the other day that I don't really miss golf, but it's partly because of the weather. So, because I think mentally I'm like, well, you can't even play if you miss, so it doesn't even matter. But I am excited because I'm heading over. I'm in Scottsdale for a work trip, and a buddy of mine lined me up at Ping Golf to get fitted for the new irons and the I-230. So I can't wait for that in December, first week of December.
Yeah, good for you, man.
Hopefully, drink a couple cold beers to drown my sorrows of missing golf. So today's episode is brought to you by Lynx Brewing. So go check them out at lynxbrewing.com. Again, Chasin Birdies Blonde Ale. I just had to deliver a case to a friend the other day. People are buying it, man. Let's get it for the holidays. It's a great beer to drink during the holidays and having fun with your friends.
Yeah, so I had some people over the house the other night after dinner, and the guy's like, what's this green can, And I'm all, it's Chasin Birdies Blonde Ale. And he's like, let me try that. I like blonde ales. I didn't have enough in the fridge. I mean, I had 5 cans and 5 were gone. So
we got a pretty big fridge now.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt, buddy. Today's guest, though, JP, I mean, this has been a guy that he and I have been going back and forth on Instagram trying to nail down a time. We've been doing this now for almost 2 or 3 months. And really, really nice guy, genuine guy. And you can just tell that, he wants to do well. He's already done well in his career, but now he is on to the next chapter. And I'm talking about Joe Skovron. Many of you may have seen him with Rickie Fowler on tour for 13 years. Scovy, whatever you want to call him.
We go through that.
Yeah, we went through it. But we got him here on Chasin Birdies for the Caddie Perspective, man.
First Caddie Perspective. I love it. And there's no one better than him to have on this podcast.
No one else.
Great dude. I mean, great dude. I feel like he's a guy you throw a couple back, you enjoy yourself, yuck it up with the boys a little bit. And I even offered him to come caddy for the boys at a member guest this in 2023. I told him, listen, you can drink transfusions, you drive the cart around, you enjoy yourself, clean our clubs every once in a while, and give us good yardages.
Yeah. No. And we could use that. But, guys, thank you for tuning in today on Chasin Birdies, and I think it's time we just roll this right into Joe Skovron. All right, guys, we're back here for another episode of Chasin Birdies, and we've had some PGA Tour players on in the past, some other golfers, all golf nuts, but we've never had a caddy perspective per se. But today's guest will change that. We have Joe Skovron here on Chasin Birdies, and we are stoked about this one, my man. How you doing, Joe?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Scovy, right? We just should call you Scovy.
Yeah, a lot of people call me that. Yeah, Scovy. Everybody kind of says it different. I just go with it however it is.
So is it Skovron or Skovron?
It depends who you ask. If you ask my parents, they say Skovron. I say Skovron, so I don't know.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm not too picky.
That's like
Scovy.
Peppy.
But when you say Skovron,
I mean, same thing.
spells it wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, man. Well, look, we're so glad to have you on here. Get to talk a little bit about golf and kind of what you've been doing over the years. You had a hell of a caddy career. You're still having a hell of a caddy career. So I know walking through just a little bit in the beginning of your lifespan, I know you're from Southern California.
Yeah, just outside the San Diego area, Marietta, California.
Yep. Okay. So kind of got into golf early. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? How that whole thing started with you in golf a little bit? I know your dad, Lou, was a PGA Tour or a PGA professional, at least teaching pro.
Yeah, you guys have done your homework. Yeah, I grew up in a golf family. My dad, sports nuts, but golf was the main thing. And my dad's been a PGA pro, since he got out of college, and still teaches to this day at 76. Wow. Ran golf courses when I was growing up. So, and then my mom actually ran our local junior golf association for 20 plus years. They just moved to Scottsdale, just moved on from that. So, we had players like Rickie Fowler, Brendan Steele, John Mallinger come up in that program. And it was just a local program, so it was very cool. And golf was kind of a natural thing.
Those are a few names right there, I would say. A little bit of money has been made on those three, just from
exactly.
Cal.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you played college golf. You obviously, like Ryan said, you grew up in golf and you played college golf. Did you try the mini tour circuit a little bit? Because that's what a lot of people don't understand. Everybody coming out of college thinks that, oh, I'm going to go try it. Well, there's a million of you out there, right? Speaking in general, like from here to Webb Simpson is a large gap. So is that something that you did try?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of had my mind set on that for a long time. And I was a really good junior player, like young, and then kind of hit a roadblock. High school, played football and basketball in high school, and wasn't highly recruited. Went to UC Santa Barbara for a year, and then ended up at a Division III school after that, and had a pretty good Division III career. But that's a totally different level of golf, right? So went out and tried it. Played for 3, maybe 4 years. It was kind of like 2 years that were full, where I got some sponsorship and went and played and did it. Went to Q school twice. Missed first stage by one year. The other year played awful, and I just wasn't good enough. And I finally realized that, I won one mini tour event. I was around the cuts all the time, but it's how I got into caddying. So
right, Joe. That's the thing too. A lot of people don't understand is like when, we talk to a lot of people that play golf. When does a player get to a point like, all right, man, I can't do it? Because you see some people that are lifers trying this mini tour shit.
Yeah. So I think some guys, I know a lot of lifers out there, and some of those guys, they're good enough on a day-to-day basis when you watch their games, but sometimes their games don't translate at Q school, or it doesn't translate when they start traveling across the country and those kind of things when they get out of their comfort zone. Or maybe it's just the Q school block, right? Some guys just have a Q school block, and unless you Monday into a bunch of events, you got to make it through Q school at some point to get your status. But for me, missing Q school twice, missing some cuts, missing a lot of cuts, money becomes a problem, all those things. So for me, I just knew, I knew that was it for me, and I just wasn't good enough, and I wasn't progressing at the level I needed to.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that's so crazy too, is that, I think for most golfers, you've been a golfer your whole life, and it's like, well, then what the hell am I going to do? Right. So, I mean, so were you kind of at that point where you were going to, all right, I'm done with golf? Was caddying kind of in your future already, or was it you quit golf and you kind of had a job and went from there?
So yeah, caddying wasn't on my radar. I caddied when I missed a couple cuts for Brendan. I roomed with Brendan Steele on the mini tour. So like a couple times when he was in contention, he's like, hey, why don't you come out with me and do it that way? But that was about it at that point. I was trying to start up a golf clothing company. I had started doing that kind of midway through playing mini tours and kind of, having a plan B. And then I had majored in movement and sports science and was planning on coaching college golf or going back and teaching high school and coaching football and golf. And that was kind of my plan for my life. And then that all kind of changed. I caddied some it was nationwide tour at that time. Now the Corn Ferry for Brendan, I did probably 12 to 15 events over 2 years. And I did like 8 LPGA events for a friend of mine, did a couple majors, just filling in for her. And that's where the Rickie thing came up.
So again, you weren't very experienced at caddying. You caddied for a couple tournaments for Brendan Steele, who's your buddy, and things go, if things happen, you guys can pat each other on the back and kind of, hey, next week we'll get it. How does somebody that doesn't have a lot of caddy experience fall into one of the world's greatest golfers in Rickie Fowler?
Yeah, wild how it happened. I mean, Rickie grew up in the same town, as I mentioned, 8 years younger than me. So I'd known him, his whole golfing life since he was 4.5 or 5. Had played a lot of golf with him, been around him a lot, and he had tried other guys when he'd gotten starts. And it was a lot of older guys, and, there's not that rapport, and there's not that kind of, in the downtime in between shots, being able to talk and get along and have that comfort level. And he just said, "Hey, do you want to come out and caddy the event at Ohio State," which all the All-Americans got in. He was still an amateur. And that was the summer of 2009. And I went out there with him, and we bogeyed the last hole to go to a playoff with Derek Lamley, and we lost in the playoff. And he said, "Do you want to come out in the fall?" And I had taken on a college coaching job at that point, and I was coaching at my alma mater. And we'd had a good season. We finished second at Nationals that year. And I said, "Yeah, I'll come out." And we've been out there ever since. So that doesn't fully answer your question. That's how it happened. But as far as the experience part, playing golf as long as I have and being around the game and being kind of a coaching mindset helped me a lot with that. And then it was go out there, learn how it's done out there, ask the right guys, learn the golf courses. And then, but the personality part was kind of a natural fit for me. Kind of, what a guy wants to hear in competition, about lies and things like that other people that haven't played at that level wouldn't understand. So I kind of had a leg up on that.
And you kind of had a little bit of a relationship with him, just given the fact that he had played all that junior tournaments with your mom's organization and whatnot. So, it's kind of like peanut butter and jelly to a degree. It's a terrible analogy, but that's all I can think of right now.
Hungry for one, bud?
Yeah, a little bit. And we'll get into some of that talk a little bit, but, right then and there in 2009, I guess in the fall is when you went full time with Rickie. At that point in your life as a caddy, you obviously probably still weren't, I don't know, maybe acclimated. Maybe that's not the right word, or maybe it is, but I'm sure you still had to try to now sharpen your tools a little bit, because now you have a superstar who's trying to make it on tour. You're full time carrying his bag. So now you have to elevate your game a little bit to kind of be a great advisor to him. So was there a little bit of a growing pain for you from a caddy perspective at that point when you knew now this was full time?
Yeah, I think the two biggest differences is the job now, whereas it was fun with Brendan. Charlotte, it was like kind of halfway in between. She wanted me to do it as a job. She was playing on the LPGA Tour, but we were friends, and it was a fill-in role, and you knew you were only going out there for a couple weeks at a time. Now it's your full-time job, right? And there's other people wanting that job when it's Rickie Fowler. So the good thing for us is we had success quick. But the other difference would be that, there wasn't as much walking the courses with them, right? Because there wasn't the same expectation. It was more like, hey, keep me calm. You know how to get numbers. You know how to do all that stuff. That kind of a thing. And then now you're learning PGA Tour courses. You got to try to catch up because he doesn't know the pin placements. I don't know the pin placements. We haven't been to the golf courses. So, there was a lot more work on Mondays. Mondays were, that was quite a few hours on the golf course. And I'm a prepper, so it didn't bother me at all. But there was definitely, you're trying to learn fast. There's a learning curve out there of what you're trying to get to. And we had both of us trying to catch up at that time from a prep standpoint.
You think about it, at that time when Rickie came out, dude, and this is a large comparison, but at that time, that's kind of when Tiger was still Tiger, but Rickie was almost the guy that was creating that buzz. I mean, to this day, Rickie Fowler still creates a buzz. Even when he was not playing well for a year or two, people still want Rickie Fowler, and that's, like you said, everybody wants your job. And that's the thing. Now it's a position that he's paying you weekly or monthly or however you guys get paid. And you have to take it seriously and like you said, show up on Mondays and kind of work it all out. And
yeah, it makes it a lot easier for us amateurs. I mean, we just get up to the ball, we shoot the pin, and we're like, all right, we got 165 here. Well, we got a little wind. Do we jump an 8, soft 7? What do we do?
We might need to bring Scovey to a couple member guests. I mean, he can drive the cart. He can drink transfusions or confusions, as Cole Taylor told us, and we would be dialed.
Yeah,
I'm willing to gamble.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty fun day.
To add
to what you guys are saying too, your point on Rickie, that was another thing. Like, I jumped into a superstar, you know what I mean? So like, there was off the court stuff that went with it, and managing. He's trying to learn to manage autographs and people pulling at him and the interviews, and you're trying to practice and people want a piece of you and this and that. So there was a lot there to learn as well that went along with it, because he was the number one am in the world. He had quick success. Everybody kind of put the expectations on him quickly. So it wasn't just jumping into like, hey, I'm going to caddy for this guy that no one really talks about and go try to make a living. It was like, jump right into the fire, right?
Well, and it's interesting too, like what people don't understand is, we have a lot of friends in the hockey world, and everybody thinks that they get free tickets, like everything's free, right? And no, they get 2 tickets a game, and the amount of text messages that you probably got, and that's the thing that you and Rickie early on probably had to learn how to say no. How many people were requesting for tickets? How many people hit you up for an autograph? Hey, can you get Rickie to sign my kid's orange Puma hat? This, that, and the other, and you had to be able to say no, both of you. Because in reality, that's your job.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, for both of us, no's hard, right? So like, that had to be a learned skill. We're more of the guys that like try to accommodate people, do that, the whole thing. And you have to learn when to say no, when not to, where that balance is. And some people just don't see it, right? Like, he could sign for 25 minutes and there's somebody that's not happy with him because he didn't sign, and like, well, how long do you want me to stay here? Like, kind of a thing. And he was always great about that stuff, but there still was somebody always unhappy, right? So you definitely learn that skill. And then from the other side, like you said, the signing stuff, man, like, people just thought, oh, you could just get stuff signed at any time. And it's like, well, I'm not even allowed in the locker room. So like, I might see him, but I got to carry it around in my bag, figure it out when I'm going to see him this week away from the course, because you're not always seeing each other away from the course. And you're trying to get stuff signed, and then he's asked for stuff all the time, and now I'm asking him, and like, so you had to pick and choose your spots.
And that's something interesting too that I don't think a lot of people understand, is that it is a work relationship, you and Rickie. Like, you guys aren't rooming together everywhere you go. It's pretty much when the round's over, if he wants to hit some more balls, you'll be there for him. But when it's over, the day's over, and you leave that course, you're gone. You're not with one another, because in reality, it's like a husband and wife. You're going to get sick of each other eventually. And then what do you talk about the next day in the sport? If you're watching every sports event together, you have nothing to talk about on the course to get his head off of the game of golf.
It's like me and you, bud.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And like, that was some of the advice I got early from some of the older guys was, hey man, like, be conscious of how much you're rooming together, all those things, no matter how long you're going to spend so much time together. And like you said, when we've stayed in houses together, sometimes we don't have a lot to talk about because we know exactly what we both did. And you just run out of things to talk about.
That's what I was going to ask you about, like, other caddies, when you were kind of just coming on and in that spotlight, like you said, it wasn't just you're being a caddy now on tour. You're a caddy for one of the top-ranked amateur in the world, essentially, that's now on tour. Did you try to get some advice from, some other caddies that have been on tour for a while?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was walking courses or when I was in the caddy area, I'd ask guys, Fluff, Pete Bender was still out there at that time, so I'd ask them some questions. But definitely the guy that was the most helpful for me and still is Bones. And we've developed a, really tight friendship and do golf trips together here and there. We're members at the same club. We share a locker. So he's kind of been my guy the whole time, and what a guy to look to at that point, because he knew what all of it was about. He knew about being there for winning tournaments, being there for winning majors, being there for the struggle to win majors and all the pressure being on Phil and the popularity part of Phil. It was like the perfect guy to get advice from for me.
Yeah, it's crazy. So you get comfortable with one another, and it was the Wells Fargo in Charlotte. You're in a playoff with, and again, another stud in Rory McIlroy. Take people through what a playoff is like, because it's different. Now it's just one-on-one, right? It's not, you're not playing the course necessarily. Now you are playing the other person. It's a match play type scenario, because if you make a higher score, you're done. What's it like? Is Rickie nervous on the tee box? Are you talking about sports to get his mind off of the tee shot that he has to hit there at the Wells Fargo?
Yeah, so the one thing people always forget about that playoff is DA Points was there too. So it was a three-way playoff.
There you go.
And
That's right.
that's always a forgotten fact. But because everybody was just concerned with Rory and Rickie, they were like the guys at the time, right? And everybody was waiting for Rickie to win one. The one thing I remember about that week, we had a saying the whole week, and I had read a quote from Michael Jordan that greatness fears no consequence. And so that was kind of like my thing all week with him, like greatness fears no consequence. And which is a great way to play golf. It's hard to do, but it's a great way to think about things for golf or any sport. And I remember Rory was bombing it that week. And that tee shot, you go back on 18 at Quail Hollow, like that tee shot's not fun, right? So everybody's a little nervy, the whole thing. And, we're trying to get our first one. But you're excited too, because you got a chance, right? And then, so that's, this was the best chance we had at this point. And, I remember Rickie piped one, and I'm pretty sure Rory hit 3-wood, and he hit it by us. And to give you an example of how far these balls were up there and how much different it is in May, we were in between pitching wedge and gap wedge. Rory was in front of us to the front left pin. This year, guys in the President's Cup to that same front left pin are hitting, somewhere between 7-iron and 9-iron, most of them. I'm sure there was a few guys that got wedges in that I wasn't there for that match, but I mean, these balls were way down there. Right. And we were in between clubs, and this, the smart shot, if you were playing 72 holes, doing the whole thing, would be wedge past it, because we had to get gap wedge. But the ball was going, and I remember we had the conversation, and I said, it's 52 all day. And he just hit this thing right at the stick, and he had to get all of it. And I was nervous when that ball was in the air, because it lands a yard short, it's coming back in the water, it's all over. But
and if he hits it slightly, or if he hits it too good, that thing sucks back with a gap wedge. When you're hitting something harder, it's going to spin harder. So, I mean, but the adrenaline thing's a real thing, right?
It is. And it was the shot that was going to win the golf tournament, and he pulled it off.
Dude, that wedge shot.
And then that putt isn't easy either. Like, that gets away from you fast. And, it was just, I remember, like, we were so excited, but there was relief as well, right? Like, because everybody kind of like, why haven't you guys won yet? What's going on here? And so that was a big moment for both of us. And really,
does he pull you in on that putt, or was he a guy that kind of he read his greens himself?
Yeah, I don't remember if he did. I don't think he did there. Rick's a really good green reader. Obviously, he was an elite putter for so long, right? Led the tour in putting one year and everything else, and he's been a great putter his whole life. But there were weeks that I would get pulled in a lot, and then there's weeks that, I remember in Maui one year, he asked me on the 72nd hole, and it was the first read he asked for in 72 hole. So, and we weren't going to win. It was like for 6th or something, right?
But he just sees it. He just rolls with it.
Yeah, and then if he's not seeing it, he'll ask me, and then some weeks, when I was seeing it, he'd kind of roll with me longer and just say, "Hey, let's just go. Tell me where to hit it, and let's go."
Fuck, bud, I'd keep you busy.
So it just kind of depended, but most of the time he was going to lean towards reading them more himself.
So, kind of progressing with your career on tour through the years. 2012, that's your first win on the bag, right? Absolutely.
Well, first PGA Tour win on the bag. Yeah, we won in Korea. Beat Rory in Korea, and that was our first professional.
So you're in Rory right now.
So you're 2-0. So you get 2014. Now we're kind of progressing a little bit. You have a good run in the majors. I think Rickie finished top 5 in all 5 majors that year. T5 at Augusta, 3 at the PGA, T2 at the Open, 2 at the U.S. Open as well, maybe?
Yes.
So after that whole run, even though you didn't win, did it feel like a win? Obviously you want to win, but the fact that you finished top 5 on the bag in the majors, what was the vibe like during that season?
Yeah, it was a cool accomplishment. Did it feel like a win? No. Like, it felt like we were going to get one, though. And then he went and had a great year and won a bunch around the world. But, yeah, it didn't feel like that because, like, the Valhalla one felt like, man, really could have gotten that one, and that one kind of stung. Rory just took it away from us at Hoylake. I mean, Rickie played great, and Rory just played awesome. And then we were too.
Let me ask you something real quick, not to interrupt you, but when McIlroy hits the ball, does it sound like anything you've ever heard before?
No.
That's what I thought.
No. I mean, when he's driving it good, there's nothing like it. I mean, I remember when Brooks was going, that sound was different as well. You'd hear it on the range, and you could hear the sound. But Rory, when Rory's driving it, the game just looks so easy. I mean, it's incredible.
It's frozen rope.
Yeah, I mean, we played a lot with him, and that 14 year, man, he was tough. He got us in the Ryder Cup singles too. I mean, he was tough.
I can't even imagine caddying a Ryder Cup. You're in the Ryder Cup, President's Cup. I mean, you have to pinch me a little bit here. I mean, this is really my first real bag I've had, and look who I'm with. So you're doing the Ryder Cup, you're doing the President's Cup. What was the coolest experience to that point? Was the Ryder Cup pretty cool? I personally like the Ryder Cup a little bit more. The President's Cup's a little calmer. The Ryder Cup's nuts, but being inside the ropes, is it just wild?
Yeah, the Ryder Cup, there's nothing that touches how that feels, right? Like, it feels more like a sporting event. That first tee, there's a little bit more, I'm not going to say animosity, because we know a lot of those guys, and you're cool with a lot of them and everything else, but there's a little bit more of that Europe, USA, and especially with the USA struggling to win so much, you feel that whole thing a lot more in that event. But all the team events are really fun because you're part of a team, and it's such a different style, such a different way of doing things.
Is that where the Big Dick Rick chant started at the Ryder Cup?
That was at Phoenix.
Does he laugh at that stuff? Like, as a player, are you like, this is hilarious?
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff at Phoenix is just, we just chuckle and laugh, and it was a lot of fun. They love him in Phoenix. In 16, we've heard quite a bit of stuff on 16
good and bad
over the years.
So
not so much bad for him, to be honest.
He's just a Will-like guy.
They love him. And so there's not a lot of bad that you get there. He's kind of the guy. He kind of became the guy after Phil in Phoenix that they love him, you know.
I want to jump back quickly because in 2015, Rickie wins the Players, you won a bag, and that was one of probably the most exhilarating playoffs I've ever watched in golf. I mean, it can't be duplicated. The fact that he goes back to 17, how many times? 3 times, 4 times, hits the same shot. What was your vibe like with that? I mean, are you telling him, obviously you don't have to club him anymore, right? Because it's the same shot. And maybe that's just what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, we kept getting there. The wind kept switching a little bit. Like, the wind kept moving around a bit because there was such a long gap in between when we finished waiting for the playoff, going and hitting balls on the back of the range, all those things. And by the time we got to 17, it was a slightly different wind, but it was still the same club, still the same target. And I just said, same club, same target. It just kept inching closer and closer to the pin as we went on. So, the last one started at it to just right of it. And, we had a spot that was about 15 feet left of it that we were picking, but that's why you pick it, so that if you hit that shot, you're in there tight.
Being so good, dude. I mean, you and I get into a shootout in a member guest, and it's like we're pissing down our leg. I mean, the one year you shit yourself.
No, I did not shit myself, bud. I had white shorts on, Joe, and I had a little bit of dirt on my shorts from the cart. And so everyone's like yucking at me, and I'm like, but I did not it's fine. But
what a mistake.
I know. Terrible. Jonathan and I, though, we have like a blast. We play golf a lot, obviously. So we get in these member guest tournaments, and you think we're at Augusta, like this is it. Like we gotta come out swinging, and we haven't. We won one at one of my clubs up here in West Virginia, but we're pretty much not.
It's our majors.
We're always in the first flight. And we give, we play off zeros, so we have to give everybody everything, and it's just tough, man.
Yeah, it is. Giving shots and those things are tough. Those are my majors now, is all the members and member guests. So I know what you're talking about. I love them. I think.
Now you're in Scottsdale now, currently, correct?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So you play Whisper Rock or?
Man, The Rock.
Yeah.
I freaking love it. Man. So Todd Martin's a buddy of mine. And
I know Todd. Really.
So he took me out there a couple of years ago, and it was awesome. The guy he's such a good guy, and that whole vibe at Whisper Rock, dude, just drop me there and let me live there for the rest of my life. Well, my wife and kids wouldn't like that, but
it's the coolest place. I wouldn't give up my membership for anywhere just because of the guys, the club, or staff. It's awesome, man.
Is Palco still out there?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
yep.
Tyler. We had him on a podcast. He's a Pittsburgh guy, so that's
good guy.
He's a good player.
Yeah. Okay, so major seasons come around. 4 times a year now. And does your from a caddy's perspective, does that change? Obviously, there's more pressure on the players because it's a major. Well, maybe nowadays, if you ask a Live Tour player that, they wouldn't answer that correctly. But with respect to the PGA Tour, it's a major, a little more pressure. Is your job, are you more involved in a major than, say, a typical tour event? Or is it all the same for you?
I try to look at them the same, but the biggest difference for a caddy is, other than Augusta, is most of the time we haven't been there, or we've been there once.
True.
So the prep work is a lot different, right? Or even like on the Open Championship rotation, you're only there every few years. So the prep is definitely a lot different, rather than going to the venues, kind of checking your notes, going, a quick walk through. You're walking that golf course usually a couple times other than your player playing. So you're trying to get 3 or 4 looks at it, and you're trying to kind of figure out where pins are going to be, those kinds of things. And then over at the Open, you're trying to figure out, okay, wind switches, what are we going to do here? How do we play this hole? Because wind switches can completely change the strategy over there. And, you might be seeing a certain wind in practice rounds and you don't get to see it in the tournament. And a good example of that was when Rickie top 10, and this wasn't an Open Championship, but at Kiowa with the wind switches. We had gone over early when we missed a cut at Charlotte that year with Patrick Cantlay, and we had seen a wind that no one had seen in the practice rounds that we ended up getting on the weekend. So that was a nice advantage prep wise, that we had seen that wind, because it's blowing so hard. It completely changes when it's blowing in off the left on the hole rather than down off the right. That's a completely different, there's a different way to play the hole, different aim line, all those things. So that definitely becomes a factor a lot more at majors.
Different aim line. So, you're picking small targets. I mean, elaborate on that a little bit, what you just said, because I'm still trying to think about that. Down off the left.
Okay, so there's a hole, I can't remember which one it is on the back nine, 14, 15, somewhere in there at Kiowa. There's a bunker that runs all the way up the left. So the cover gets longer the further you go left. And then, you kind of run out on the right. And then as you go along, that run out gets longer and longer. So you're kind of aiming right center when it's down off the right and just letting it go, right? Because you're gonna get it. You're gonna cover if you pull it and hit it hard for a righty. And when it's in off the left, now we can't cover if we pull it, and you're running out of room right faster. So you're trying to pick that line, and all of a sudden tightens that hole. Whereas for Phil, I believe it was Sunday that happened. And Phil, now all of those holes are an advantage for Phil coming in, right? Because a lefty, now you got that bank with the wind, you got the whole thing. So it was a good wind switch for Phil. Those were really tough tee shots for Phil the rest of the week. And it became a really tough tee shot for righties once we turned to come home.
Yeah, that's that level of thinking is what probably most obviously amateurs that are playing well in college and doing the whole thing, they get that. But the average guys, like our buddies, like Tango, you think Tango's thinking about wind direction? No.
He's just thinking about the stupid green books. Our buddy, he played in the NHL for a little bit, and he gets these green books. I'm like, bud, do you even know how to read these things? Why do you ever, we're here for one day, you got a green book out. You know what you're reading? It's just a picture of a big green. It's not I'm like, why do we need this right now? Do you want a pin sheet too, bud?
And there's art to reading those, right? To actually using them correctly. Yeah, if you're just looking at the arrows, if you can't tell if it's going left or right, great. But to actually interpret the data and read them, if you don't have a green reading system, they're not doing you a whole lot of good.
Do you like the green books?
I loved them. I mean, they were a nice cheat sheet for us, and I had a system that I had learned from a guy named Mike Shy, and used that a lot. And so it was a great cheat sheet for me, especially on greens that were tough to read. But I understand why they did what they did.
Yeah, but the slow play thing. Come on.
probably good for caddies that have been out there and everything else because it puts more value on us not having the.
But to say that's a slow play, I mean that's like, I mean I get it, but at the same time, and then if you want to pick up play, let's get the rangefinders in all throughout the week. But then that takes away from you guys, right?
And to your point about slow play, I've never agreed with that because you have a certain amount of time to hit a shot. So if they enforce the rule, then it shouldn't be a problem. And I think green books, if you know how to use them right, speed it up because you're not looking at all sides on a putt that, you're trying to find something in. Green books kind of give you a cheat sheet. If you know where you're at and you know what you're doing, you're like, no, this got a little right in it, or no, this got a little left in it. But I think that's what they were trying to eliminate was that cheat sheet part.
But I barely even read the green. Like, I'm more worried about my cigar if it's still lit. I mean.
Yeah, that's true. So when you guys, I always see every caddy player discussion, you're standing there, you got the book out, you're looking, you're talking, and then you're both writing something. It's like you're writing something in the book. Is that just for notes for the next day? So if you're like, what are you writing in the book?
So I've got all my notes that I take from like previous years that I transfer over to the new books and that whole thing, leaves with pins, what we're doing off the tee, all those kinds of things. As far as writing before the shot, like I'm writing on my pin sheet, just what the front number is, what the cover is, what the pin number is, and then maybe coming up with a landing number, but that's about it. And then after the shot, you might be recording that, hey, the wind was southwest on this par 3. We had a 7-iron full and we got 190 out of it, so that for the next day, because everywhere you go, it kind of flies a little bit different, right? Torrey Pines in January and Quail Hollow in May, the ball is going a completely different distance. So when people ask for guys' distances, I'm like, well, where at? So you're kind of taking notes on that, and maybe a wind is a little bit of an odd wind, and it's like, it's west-southwest, and you're kind of trying to figure out if it's helping or if it's not, and it's going to help a draw, or if, you fade it, it's going to hold into it. And so you're kind of making that note that if we get that wind again, hey, this is how far it flew, so that you can tell them the next day if we're in between, hey, we got 190 out of it yesterday, so you can get this today. Or, hey, we've got to go to the 6. We can't get enough here.
Have you ever had a situation where you literally don't know what the fucking yardage is, where you're like, dude, I just don't know. I can't figure it out?
I mean, the closest to that would be that Valhalla PGA. I believe it was the 16th hole. It's got like, we hit it so far right, we were in the other fairway, and I ran up to the green trying to get a number and like trying to pace back and go off of the heads that were on the other fairway. And that's where a rangefinder would be nice, right? And so you're like, you're trying to like get the angles, get this number, get the whole thing. But no, you're always going to find something that's within a couple,
right.
But when we're out there 185 yards away, yeah, it could have been 183. It could have been 187 from over there trying to get an exact number. But yeah, we're going to be pretty close. So no, I haven't ever gotten to that situation where we hit a shot. We don't know how far it is.
Now,
that's good.
When
good caddy.
It's a great caddy, but again, we could use them. Especially for those ones that you missed the fairways, right? Like that would be incredible. Was there ever a point in your career with Rickie where it was kind of like, didn't get heated on the course, but did it ever get to that point to where you guys were having kind of firm discussions? Or I just don't see Rickie being that kind of guy, so maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, it's very rare, but no, it's just like, when you see these guys make a big deal about sideline arguments in the NFL and everything else, like that's part of it, right? Like we're all competitors. We're out there doing our job. There's high pressure situations. You're not going to always say things right to each other, and you might snap at each other every once in a while, or he wants something different than how I'm saying it, and I'm getting frustrated with him or whatever. So there's definitely been times where we were heated. He was always great though about the next day acting like nothing had happened. So it never carried on with him.
That's awesome.
And that always made my job a lot easier. But there were a couple nights when I kind of challenged him on things or whatever and went home and going, man, we'll see how it is tomorrow. And he was great.
I might not have a job tomorrow, boys.
So obviously that ride ended a little bit, which, hey, no harm, no foul. That's the way life is with everything. And you find yourself kind of in a new chapter now, Joe. You got Tom Kim you're carrying the bag for now. And congratulations, because he won the Shriners. So that was a good win.
What a place to win and celebrate.
We didn't get to celebrate, though. We flew straight to Japan that night on the charter, so there was no celebration, unfortunately.
Have some sake.
What's the difference now? I mean, now you have experience, so this isn't like whenever you first came out and was caddying for Rickie. Now you've caddied for years, 13 years on the bag for him. Now you got a new young gun, so to speak, on that's playing. What's changed for you with Tom relative to Rickie? Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of things, right? Like Rickie and I, 13 years. It was a lot more than a caddy-player relationship, right? Families, the whole thing. So that obviously the comfort level there and how much of a routine it was changes quite a bit, right? Because now you're learning a new guy. But there's some similarities in the fact that I'm working for a 20-year-old. Rickie wasn't quite 21 yet. Highly touted. The difference is Tom had already won when I got on the bag. And then the biggest difference is that I've been out there for so long now. So he's picking my brain, asking me questions, puts a lot of value in it. He's great about that. And so I'm kind of like, I'm double his age. Yeah. So it's like, I'm the old guy, he's the kid. And it's been a lot of fun, though. It's really, it's really been exciting, like seeing a guy that's 20 years old that wants to be the best in the world and like kind of going through that whole thing over again, but with experience that I have now and knowing all the things. And I've already been through all the things he's going to go through other than winning a major, but we've been as close as it gets. And we've done all the other stuff and been in all the situations. So now I've been there, done that. And I get to hopefully go through it with him.
Yeah, he's got game.
When you and Rickie parted ways, it was mutual, and it was pretty mutual. You guys are still friends and all that, and that's the thing that 13 years you had a hell of a run, but all good things come to an end, so to speak, right? And you got a fresh start now, and he has a fresh start, and he's starting to play well again, and you won. So it's kind of like everybody wins on this deal. In reality, friendships are very important in life, right? So
yeah, bigger than the game.
So to your point there, that's as hard of conversations I've ever had in my life, right? Like and I think the same thing for him, and so that conversation was really tough, and it's not an easy balance, how to handle it, what to go through, what the reactions are, the emotions, all that stuff. But we played the same tournaments as them on that 3-week stretch, and, ended up at dinners with Rickie, and the guy on his bag now is a good friend of ours from the same town that's right in between us in age, Ricky Romano. And, Tom's pulling for Rickie. He's a big Rickie fan. Rickie's pulling for Tom. Like, it's been good for everybody out of this, right. Rickie is turning it around, and sometimes you just need something different to turn it around. And my voice, 13 years of the same voice, sometimes you need to hear something different. And Rickie needed something different to turn this thing around, because he's too good to be playing the way that we were for 3 years. And you've seen it already. I mean, he almost won in Japan. He finished 6th at Safeway, so it's awesome to see.
And that speaks volumes of you guys too, because a lot of people I don't want to talk about it type thing, and you can tell based on our conversation to this point, you still have a lot of respect for him and you're still pulling for him. So that's really cool to see that you're still pulling for him.
I mean, the only reason I'm here is because he brought me out, right? So he gave me the opportunity.
Yeah.
Now Kim, he's got this kid. What a stud, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's so much. It's exciting to talk about his game and talk about him and the intangibles that people, I think he could see some of it at the President's Cup, and people could see how he handled the pressure with Cantlay going down the stretch at Vegas. But the intangibles off the course, or not necessarily off the course, but away from tournament golf, and the work ethic and his expectations and the willingness to how good of a practicer he is and how planned out he is and all those things for a 20-year-old, they're off the charts.
I just want their short game for 24 hours. That's all I want. Is that like, do you like you being such a good golfer growing up? Is that something you sit there and you're like, Jesus God, are these guys good?
Yeah, I mean the shots they hit. When you try to describe how different it is to people, they can't really understand until you actually, like, even seeing it in person. I think you kind of get, like, even caddying, you get kind of like numb to it because you see it so much. But then if you go play golf with them, or you go play golf on your own after, and you realize how hard those shots were, or you see how far by you they hit it, and just the things they can do. Like, when, we play a lot of golf with Max Homa here, and my buddies are just like, they're in amazement and awe all the time because of the sound and what he does and how far by us he hits it and the shots he pulls off. And it's just a totally different
And it's so funny watching Max Homa because he reminds me a little bit of like a goofball, right? He looks like a little bit of a goofball, but
it looks like Trocheck, dude, to Vince to a T.
But man, does he have freaking get, like, how about him chipping in who was it? Willett 3 putts from 10 feet. He chips in 3 putts. What? I mean, dude, it's again, the short game is where that's what people don't understand. There's a million people out there, and that's why I said in the beginning, when do you get to a point on a mini tour and say, all right, I'm done? Because there is a million golfers out there that can hit with a lot of the PGA Tour players from driver to 7-iron. There's a million of them.
Yeah.
But from 8-iron and the putter, they're one of a kind.
Yeah, absolutely. And the elite guys with those clubs you're talking about, they're different, right? But there are guys out there that they're not much different than a really good mini tour player. But yeah, there's, managing their game, belief in themselves. Chipping is such a massive thing on the PGA Tour. And when you get to majors and you get firm greens and those kind of things, the difference in chipping is so immense with that, as far as like what we're used to, when you play soft greens that are rolling 9, right, compared to greens that are baked out and rolling 13. It's a totally different thing.
I went to the Memorial this year on Saturday. Actually, I yelled your name. You're walking on a tee box. I said, "My man, what's up, Scott?" But I was watching Cam Smith, and man, that hurt my heart when he left. But at any rate, I'm watching him around the green. He got up and down on back of 7 from behind the green, short-sided, just hit this open. I text Aaron Dill. I'm like, "Hey, Dilly, what wedge was he using on this shot?" And then he got up and down on 10 from left of the green. It's like this guy was like a machine. I mean, talk about a short game.
His caddy is one of my 2 best friends out here, Pinner and Matty Kelly, who works for Mark Leishman. They were, now they're gone, but those were the guys I roomed with every week for 13 years. And we knew each other since I was working for Brendan. And so those are my guys. And so obviously I'm a big Cam fan. And Cam's short game, I mean, one story to illustrate that, we were at Hilton Head. I think it was this year. It was this year or last year. And the 10th tee is right next to the chipping green. And he was about to go off, and we were the next group after him. And I was over there chatting with Pinner and him. And he hit a regular shot. It's a 20-yard shot, nips it, whatever. Puts one hand on the club and hits a mid-height, one bounce, check, spin back shot with one hand from 20 yards. I'd never seen anything like it. I was like, what is going on here? The stuff he can do around the greens, I mean, it's up there with Phil when you talk about guys and what they can do. It's incredible.
Well, I'll tell you another guy that's very underrated that, all his bullshit kind of gets in front of him that has an incredible short game is John Daly. I mean, that guy's hands are all world. But again... Yeah,
his hands touch. I mean, he's the talent in that guy.
I mean, he's ripping a cigarette, drinking a beer with his left hand, and, chipping with one hand. It's like, what?
Yeah.
And that's why people don't understand how good these guys, they can get up and down out of a garbage can. Seve Ballesteros back in the day, he didn't hit the ball that great. I mean, he was a good ball striker, but he missed a lot of greens by 10, 15 yards, and he was getting up and down every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, flair, right? Like playing from other fairways,
and
shots around trees,
yep.
Up there and getting it up and down. And yeah, I mean, Seve and Jose Maria, legendary short games, right? That everybody talks about.
Well, Joe, man, it's been an honor having you on here, man. Hearing some of these stories, getting to pick your brain a little bit, man. And obviously, I'm happy for you right now in this new chapter of your life. But We're going to turn this bad boy over to the last section of the show called the Tap-In segment, presented by Bettinardi Golf. And Jonathan's going to ask you 4 or 5 questions that demand your quick-witted response. Take it away.
All right. Biggest on-course accomplishment as a PGA Tour caddy?
Winning the Players.
Worst golf course to carry the bag at?
Maui.
Oh, man, that place sucks.
That's what I should say.
Go up a freaking mountain, down. I mean, it's like you're like a goat.
You're glad to be there. You're really glad to be there, and it means the year was great. But coming off the off season and walking that place, luckily there's a couple shuttles.
Best caddy nickname on tour?
Got to go with Fluff or Bones, one of the two, just because they're both legends and they're such good names.
All right, best shot you ever saw while you've been out there?
Man, I mean, coolest shot for me. I don't know if it's the best shot. It's probably not even the best shot I ever saw him hit, but the coolest shot was 16 at the Players when Rickie hit the high cut 3-wood and hit right next to the railroad ties or on the railroad ties or whatever it did and got there right next to the hole. That was, I mean, nerve-wracking, cool, all of them at once, and ended up being what won us the tournament.
Still a hell of a shot, too.
All right, last one. What are you chasing?
A major.
Let's go.
I love it.
You're on a bag that could potentially win a major in 2023. So
Absolutely.
I'm taking Tom across the board next year on all the majors.
I love it.
Well, my man, thanks so much, Joe, for catching us here on Chasin Birdies, and we look forward to maybe pegging it up sometime.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, boys.
Man, that was cool as hell, man. I think for me, it was so funny when I asked him, I said, man, have you ever had a time where you're like, I don't know the freaking yardage, period.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then he cites the Valhalla, you know, when Rickie blew it way right. He had to run all over God's creation to get a number. But, man, these caddies work their tails off, man.
They work their asses off.
And we have it easy with rangefinders, but
yeah,
that was pretty cool, though.
It's a cool perspective. And, again, Rickie for 13 years sounded like it was a breakup that they both agreed on. They both know that each other needed a change, and that's fine. You can tell they're still friends, which I give mad props to. And now he's with Tom Kim, which, I mean, he's already won once. And I like the Cat's chances in majors next year, to be honest with you. The guy's got game. The wedges, Aaron Dill's always talking about his wedge game. So
no, it was cool to hear all that stuff with him, man. So good luck, Joe. I know you're going to do just fine, man. You got a great kid now on the bag, and you got your experience. And like I said, man, I'm taking Tom Kim across the board in all majors next year.
All majors, yeah. Huh?
He's chasing it.
Yeah, he is chasing it. I do want to say thank you to Nemacolin for sponsoring the show. They do an incredible job right now. Again, go to nemacolin.com, check them out, get the elf tuck in. It's a beautiful time up at Nemacolin with it decorated. And we got some good news that Nemacolin's back for 2023, bud. So,
yeah. Hey,
buckle up, boys. You're going to hear some more about Nemacolin and the 5-star resort through and through. And, again, check them out at nemacolin.com. Book your room, tell them the boys sent you, and look for 3 events next year with Nemacolin and the Chasin Birdie boys. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that'll be great, but I'm so glad you're a good planner. You just tell me where to be, buddy. It's like, hey, Pep, what time should I be here? Okay, perfect. I'll be right there.
I like to plan things out, bud, because if it wasn't for me, then nothing would get planned because you're snoozing.
I'm excited about it, dude. And you know what else I'm excited about briefly is our next potential guest here on Chasin Birdies. With it being a little colder, we're going back to the ice. And that's what I'll say about that.
Yeah, big player coming on the podcast, the captain of an NHL team. Good conversation from another country. I can't give too much information because then you guys start sniffing around and I want you on your seats a little bit. So we're looking forward to giving you that one in December, and then we'll probably do a little banter session to close out the year because I know that all of you like to hear us bicker back and forth. Also, stay tuned for the 12 days of Christmas coming up. We're going to be doing a lot of giveaways, merch with our partners, giveaways, gift cards. There's going to be all kinds of stuff. We're not even planning it. Our girl Jacqueline is planning it. She's doing an incredible job with Rachel. So those will be coming out 12 days in a row. We'll be doing giveaways. Anything else, bud, on this Turkey Day?
Man, no. And I think right now it's time to just kind of settle in, be grateful for what we have, everybody out there, and enjoy the day, man, and really try to just be present in that moment. So that's all I'm going to say. We're going to leave it at that, guys. We thank you for tuning in and appreciate all the love. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Stay tuned for the next drop. And we want to thank Evo and his team over at Simpler Media for putting this thing together, and Rachel London, Jacqueline DiPaterio for all your social help. You girls are killing it. We couldn't do it without you. And that's all I got to say, bud. I need to go get some gravy, mashed potatoes, and a little bit of turkey. What about you, bud?
Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing. Hey, man, I'm thankful for you doing this damn thing together. Thankful for our friends, all our family. This has been a fun ride, and we appreciate all of you. We appreciate Nemacolin, Bettinardi, Holderness and Bourne, Lynx Brewing. Everyone out there is much appreciated, and we can't wait for the holidays with our family.
Yeah, man. That's it, guys. Y'all enjoy the day. Have a good weekend, and we'll catch y'all on the flip side.
Go chase that turkey around.